Just before 7 a.m. on July 13th, 2011, a man called 911 from a beachfront mansion. His voice sounded panicked.
Yeah, I got a girl hung herself. The same place that you came and got the kid yesterday.
When deputies arrived, they walked into a scene that immediately felt wrong. 32-year-old Rebecca Zahau was lying naked in the courtyard beneath a second-floor balcony. Her wrists and ankles had been bound. A rope was wrapped around her neck, and a message had been painted in black across a nearby door. To understand why Rebecca was found hanging beneath that balcony, you first have to go back to another tragedy that happened inside the same house just 2 days earlier. By the summer of 2011, Max Shacknai was staying at the Spreckels Mansion, a historic oceanfront estate overlooking the Pacific Ocean in Coronado, California. Shacknai was the founder and CEO of Medicis Pharmaceutical, a company that had made him one of Arizona's wealthiest businessmen. Also staying at the mansion was his girlfriend, Rebecca Zahau. Born in Myanmar, Rebecca had spent part of her life living in Nepal and Germany before eventually moving to the United States around a decade earlier. Friends later described her as quiet, artistic, and soft-spoken. Rebecca and Jonah had met in Arizona several years earlier and eventually began a serious relationship. That July, Rebecca's younger sister, Zena, was also staying at the mansion, and so was Jonah's 6-year-old son, Max. Max had been born to Jonah and his second wife, Dina Romano. Family members described him as gentle, careful, and unusually mature for his age. By all accounts, Jonah and Dina adored their son, which made what happened next all the more devastating. On the morning of July 11th, Rebecca, Zena, and Max were inside the mansion. Somewhere upstairs, near the second-floor landing, Max ended up at the railing. Moments later, Max went over the banister and fell face-first to the floor below. Rebecca said she had been in a bathroom when she heard the crash. She ran out to find Max on the floor. Around him, the scene looked chaotic. A chandelier had shattered. A razor scooter lay across his leg, and soccer balls were scattered around the landing area. According to Rebecca, he was still conscious when she reached him. She said he murmured one word, Ocean, which was the name of the family dog. Then Rebecca screamed for Zena, who was in an upstairs bathroom, to call 911. By the time responders reached Max, he was no longer speaking. He was unresponsive, not breathing properly, and the injuries were already catastrophic. Max was rushed to hospital and placed on life support. Investigators soon developed a theory about what had happened inside the mansion. They believed Max may have been riding a razor scooter through the upstairs hallway, lost control near the railing, and struck the chandelier on the way down. But doubts started to emerge. Experts later hired by Max's family questioned whether the scene fully matched that explanation. They argued the carpeted hallway would have made it difficult for the scooter to gain enough speed and pointed to the lack of injuries consistent with striking the chandelier. There were also questions about Rebecca's account of Max speaking after the fall, as some medical experts argued the injuries may have made that impossible. As Max remained in intensive care, uncertainty surrounding the fall continued to grow. The next day, on July 12th, Rebecca dropped her younger sister at the airport for a flight back to Missouri. Later that day, she picked up Max Shacknai's brother, Adam, a tugboat captain who had flown in from Memphis to support the family. That evening, Rebecca, Jonah, Adam, and a friend ate dinner together before Jonah returned to the hospital to stay beside Max's bed. Rebecca and Adam eventually returned alone to the mansion. According to Adam, he took a sleeping pill and went to bed in the detached guest house around 8 p.m. Meanwhile, Rebecca continued texting and speaking with family members throughout the evening. At one point, She even made plans to visit Missouri later that year. Around 10:48 p.m., Rebecca received a text from Nina Romano, Dina's twin sister. Nina wanted to stop by the mansion and talk about Max's accident, but Rebecca never replied. Hours later, at 12:50 a.m., Rebecca checked a voicemail. The message was believed to be about Max's worsening condition. According to Jonah, it informed Rebecca that Max was unlikely to survive. Sometime afterward, the voicemail was deleted. Neither investigators nor Rebecca's family would ever get to hear it. After that, the timeline becomes increasingly difficult to piece together. There were no further calls, no further messages, and no clear account of what happened inside the mansion during the remaining hours of the night. When morning came, around 7 a.m., Adam Shacknai said he walked toward the main house and found Rebecca hanging from the second-floor balcony. He claimed he climbed onto a patio table, used a kitchen knife to cut her down, and attempted CPR before calling 911.
An emergency, what are you reporting?
Yeah, I got a girl hung herself in a guest house of, it's on Ocean Boulevard across from the hotel, same place that you came and got the kid yesterday.
Okay, sir, what is the address?
I'm not sure. The back house is 1928 something. I'm not sure. Let me call you back.
Okay, sir, is she still alive?
I don't know.
Okay.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Did you get the address?
No, sir, I need the address.
It is CPR right now. She came here yesterday to pick up a little boy.
Okay, sir, I wasn't working yesterday. I don't know what you're talking
Check
about.
your records.
Sir, I checked all of the records yesterday. I can't find anything on Ocean Boulevard. Can you tell me what the address is?
1043 Ocean Boulevard.
1043 Ocean? Okay,
Yeah.
Is she still alive?
I don't think so.
Okay, let me get the fire department.
But by the time deputies entered the courtyard, Rebecca was already dead. She was naked. Her wrists had been bound behind her back with red rope, and her ankles were tied together. A t-shirt had also been stuffed into her mouth and wrapped across her face as a gag. Above the courtyard, a rope still hung from the balcony and disappeared through the upstairs guest room doorway, and painted across the bedroom door in black were the words, "She saved him, can you save her?" And almost immediately, investigators faced a question that would divide people for years. Was this an elaborate suicide or a staged homicide? Inside the upstairs guest room, investigators found red rope tied to the footboard of the bed. Nearby were paintbrushes, black paint, and 2 kitchen knives scattered across the floor. On the dusty balcony outside, 2 barefoot impressions were found near the railing. There was also a disturbed section across the top of the railing, roughly the width of a human body. To investigators, the scene suggested Rebecca had gone over the balcony face first. But almost immediately, other experts began challenging that conclusion. Crime scene analyst Dr. Maurice Godwin believed photographs from the balcony appeared to show an overlapping shoe print around Rebecca's footprints, suggesting another person may have been there shortly before her death. Then came the autopsy. San Diego medical examiner Dr. Jonathan Lucas ruled Rebecca's death a suicide by hanging. He pointed to classic signs of asphyxiation, including damage to the neck muscles and fractures within structures of the neck consistent with hanging. He concluded the 9-foot drop from the balcony had been enough to kill her. There were no drugs or alcohol in Rebecca's system, but the autopsy also revealed bruising and multiple injuries to Rebecca's scalp and head. Dr. Lucas believed those injuries may have happened as Rebecca struck parts of the balcony structure during the fall. Other experts strongly disagreed. Dr. Cyril Wecht later argued the injuries looked more consistent with blunt force trauma before the hanging itself. He believed Rebecca may have been unconscious before she ever went over the balcony. The bindings became another major point of controversy. Investigators demonstrated how someone could theoretically bind their own wrists and ankles before suicide, and also noted that Rebecca's right hand could slip free from the knot. Critics of that conclusion argued the opposite. The knots looked too deliberate. Some compared them to maritime knots, while others said they resembled rope bondage techniques. Attention quickly shifted toward Adam Shacknai's background as a tugboat captain, but even during later court proceedings, experts admitted the knots themselves were too common to conclusively identify who had tied them. Then there was the gag. Rebecca's long hair had been tucked beneath the rope and fabric around her neck. Critics of the suicide ruling argued many women would instinctively pull their hair free before tightening anything around their throat. To them, the scene looked arranged. The painted message added another layer of uncertainty. Rebecca's thumbprint was found on the cap of the paint tube, and black paint appeared on parts of her body and fingers. Investigators believed she had written the message herself, but her family strongly disagreed. They argued the handwriting didn't resemble hers, and some people also pointed out that parts of the message appeared unusually high on the door for Rebecca's height. Even Sheriff Bill Gore later admitted it was not a clear suicide note. And then there was the missing forensic evidence. Investigators found Rebecca's fingerprints throughout the room, including on the rope, paint supplies, and bed, but they found no conclusive evidence linking another person to an assault, and no trace evidence connected Adam Shacknai to the rope, knife, or balcony scene. To some people, that reinforced the suicide ruling. To others, it suggested the scene had been cleaned. As news helicopters circled above the mansion, public fascination with the case exploded. The case quickly became one of the most debated death investigations in the country. On July 16th, 5 days after the fall, Max Shacknai died in hospital from severe brain injuries caused by the accident. Max was just 6 years old. Then, on September 2nd, 2011, Bill Gore publicly announced the department's final conclusions. Max's death was ruled a tragic accident, while Rebecca's death was officially ruled a suicide. According to Gore, no foul play was involved in either case. But Rebecca's family refused to accept it. They insisted she was not suicidal, and argued the scene inside the mansion made no sense as a suicide. Her younger sister publicly stated, "My sister was murdered." In 2013, Rebecca's family filed a wrongful death lawsuit alleging that Adam Shacknai had murdered her. By 2018, the case finally reached civil trial. Jurors heard weeks of testimony about knots, scalp injuries, blood evidence, forensic reconstruction, and the scene inside the mansion. The Zahau family argued Rebecca had been assaulted, bound, gagged, and thrown from the balcony. The defense argued there was no motive, and no physical evidence proving Adam had murdered anyone. Adam denied any involvement. He maintained he slept through the night, woke the next morning, found Rebecca hanging from the balcony, and tried to save her. Then came the verdict. By a 9-3 vote, enough for civil court, the jury found Adam responsible for Rebecca's death. Rebecca's family was awarded millions of dollars in damages. Adam appealed, prompting another review of parts of the investigation as medical examiners re-examined evidence and earlier forensic findings. Eventually, the civil case was settled, the judgment was vacated, and no criminal charges were ever filed. Yet despite the civil verdict, investigators continued to maintain that Rebecca died by suicide. Officially, the case has never changed. Investigators still maintain that Max Shacknai's death was a tragic accident, and that Rebecca Zahau took her own life less than 2 days later. But after more than a decade, people still look at the scene inside that mansion and struggle to make sense of it. A 6-year-old boy falling over a second-floor railing, a woman found bound, gagged, and hanging from a balcony, a message painted across a door, conflicting forensic opinions, and a deleted voicemail nobody ever heard. And unfortunately, we may never truly know what happened to Max and Rebecca inside that mansion all those years ago.